Welcome back to Untold Revenge Files. Today, the story you're about to hear takes place in Clearfield, Virginia. My name is Derek Lawson. I'm 38 years old, and I'm the man who found his wife's name on a hotel register. The same wife who swore she was 200 miles away visiting her sister. What I found behind the bathroom door didn't just end my marriage. It unraveled a lie 3 years in the making. Let me take you back. I'm an eco-architect. Award-winning, actually. I design sustainable commercial buildings, living roofs, rainwater systems, structures that breathe with the land instead of suffocating it. I tell you that not to brag, but so you understand something about me. I notice details. It's what I do for a living. I notice when a beam is a quarter inch off. I notice when drainage angles don't match blueprints. I notice when something doesn't fit. And that Thursday afternoon at the Grand View Hotel in Clearfield, something didn't fit at all. I was there for a client meeting. A developer named Frank Ogilvy wanted to discuss a mixed-use project downtown, and the Grand View had a conference suite he liked to use. I arrived 20 minutes early, because I'm always early, and while I waited in the lobby, I struck up a conversation with the front desk clerk. She was new, a little nervous, and she accidentally turned the guest register screen toward me while looking something up. I wasn't snooping, I want to be clear about that, but my eyes are trained to catch anomalies, and the name Vanessa Lawson jumped off that screen like a fire alarm. My wife, Vanessa Hale Lawson. Checked into room 412. My stomach dropped. Not a little flutter, a full, sickening free fall. The kind where the floor disappears and your body knows something your brain hasn't caught up to yet. See, Vanessa had told me that morning she was driving to her sister Pauline's house in Roanoke. She'd packed an overnight bag. She'd kissed my cheek at the front door and said, "I'll call you tonight, babe. Roanoke is 3 hours southwest. The Grand View Hotel is 11 minutes from our house." I stood there in that lobby and felt my pulse hammering in my ears. Maybe there's an explanation, I told myself. Maybe she changed plans. Maybe Pauline came here instead. But even as I thought it, I knew I was reaching. 14 years of marriage teaches you the difference between an explanation and an excuse. Before I tell you exactly what I found in that room, tell me, what time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I'm really curious to see how far this story will travel. I canceled the meeting with Frank, told him something came up. Then I walked to the elevator, pressed 4, and watched the numbers climb. My hands weren't shaking yet. That would come later. Right then, I was in architect mode, observing, measuring, cataloging. The hallway on the 4th floor smelled like lavender air freshener and carpet cleaner. Room 412 was at the end, near the stairwell. I stood outside the door and listened. Nothing, just the hum of the HVAC system. I knocked. 3 sharp raps, professional almost. The silence that followed lasted maybe 5 seconds, but it stretched like taffy. Then I heard her voice, muffled through the door. "Who is it?" "It's Derek." Another silence. Longer this time. I heard movement, quick, panicked movement. Footsteps. A door closing inside the room. Then the lock clicked, and there she was. Vanessa. My wife of 14 years, standing in a hotel bathrobe with wet hair, mascara slightly smudged, and a look on her face I'd never seen before. Not guilt, exactly. Fear. "Derek, what are you doing here?" "I had a client meeting downstairs," I said. I kept my voice level. "What are you doing here, Vanessa? You told me you were going to Pauline's." Pauline canceled. I just needed a day to myself, a spa day. You know how stressed I've been." I looked past her into the room. The bed was rumpled, 2 towels on the bathroom floor, 2 glasses on the nightstand, one with lipstick, one without, and the bathroom door was closed. Not just closed. I could tell from the shadow underneath that someone was standing right behind it. My chest tightened like a vice. Every detail screamed. 2 glasses, 2 towels, a closed door with a shadow behind it. "Who's in the bathroom, Vanessa?" Her eyes went wide. She grabbed my arm, both hands, fingernails digging in. "Derek, please, please don't. You need to listen to me first. If you open that door, everything changes. Everything. I'm begging you." "Everything already changed," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like someone reading coordinates off a blueprint. Flat, precise, final. I walked past her. She didn't try to stop me physically, she just kept saying, please, like a broken recording. I reached for the bathroom door handle. The metal was cold against my palm. I turned it, and the man standing on the other side of that door, barefoot, pale, shaking, was someone I had buried 3 years ago. Elliot Chambers. Eli. My former best friend, my former business partner, the man whose funeral I'd spoken at. The man whose death had ripped a hole in my life so deep I'd spent 2 years in grief counseling trying to fill it. The man I thought had died in a fiery single-car accident on Route 9. His body supposedly so badly burned they identified him by dental records. He was alive, standing in my wife's hotel bathroom, and the look on his face told me everything his mouth hadn't said yet. I had no idea that the next 48 hours would expose a conspiracy so deep, so calculated, that it would dismantle every truth I'd ever believed about my marriage, my friendship, and my own judgment. And I had no idea that I, the man who notices every detail, had been the most blind person in the room for 3 straight years. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The bathroom fan hummed overhead. Water dripped from the faucet behind Eli, and I stood there, staring at a ghost. "Derek," Eli started. "You're dead," I said. Not a question, a statement, a fact I'd accepted, mourned, and tried to live beyond. "I gave a eulogy. I stood at your grave. I held your mother's hand while she sobbed." Eli's jaw trembled. He looked older, thinner, grayer at the temples, a scar running along his left forearm that hadn't been there before. But it was him, those same deep-set eyes, that same nervous habit of rubbing his thumb against his index finger. "I can explain," he whispered. "Then explain." Vanessa tried to interject. "Derek, sit down, please. Let me—" "Don't." I held up one hand without looking at her. "You've had 3 years to talk. You chose silence. He goes first." Eli stepped out of the bathroom. He sat on the edge of the bathtub, didn't even make it to a chair. And he talked. For 20 minutes he talked, and every word was a knife. He told me about the gambling, not casual poker nights, deep, compulsive, catastrophic gambling. Online platforms, underground card rooms, sports betting through offshore accounts. By the time it spiraled, he owed over $400,000 to a loan shark named Victor Russo. Victor wasn't the kind of man who sent collection letters. He sent people who broke things, kneecaps, windows, lives. Eli said he saw only one way out. He staged the accident, paid a corrupt medical examiner to falsify dental records, used the life insurance payout, $750,000, and the Keyman business policy our firm carried to fund his disappearance. He'd been living under a false identity ever since, moving between cities, working odd jobs under the table. "And her?" I asked, finally turning to Vanessa. "Where does she fit?" Vanessa was sitting on the bed now, clutching the bathrobe closed at her throat. She wouldn't meet my eyes, but she answered. "I knew before the accident," she said quietly. "Eli told me what he was planning. He asked me to help." My vision tunneled. "How long?" "The affair started about 6 months before he disappeared." "Derek, I didn't mean for it to—" "6 months before," I repeated. "So, while I was working 60-hour weeks building our firm, the firm Eli and I started together, you two were already—" She nodded. "And after he died, you comforted me. You held me while I cried. You sat with me in therapy. You watched me grieve a man who was alive, who you were still seeing." Another nod. "Have you ever had a moment where anger and heartbreak collide so completely that they cancel each other out? That's where I was. I should have been screaming. I should have been throwing things. Instead, I felt an eerie, crystalline calm settle over me, the same calm I feel when I'm solving a structural problem on a building site. Emotion drains out. Logic takes over. Every piece becomes a variable in an equation. I looked at both of them, and I made a decision that would define everything that came after. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I said, I'm leaving this room now. Neither of you contacts me. Neither of you leaves this hotel tonight. If you do, I make one phone call and Eli's resurrection becomes front-page news. Understood? They understood. I drove home in silence. No radio, no phone calls, just the sound of my own breathing and the white lines of the highway blurring past. When I got home, I sat at my drafting table, the same oak table where Eli and I had sketched our first building design 12 years ago, and I opened my laptop. I didn't write a letter. I made a list, 3 columns, 3 names, 3 phone calls I'd make at first light. Column 1, Nadine Cross, private investigator, former FBI, thorough, discreet, relentless. Column 2, Arthur Kwan, my attorney, specializing in corporate and family law. Column 3, Brenda Osei, my accountant, forensic specialty. The woman who could find a missing penny in a billion-dollar ledger. I called my closest friend, Leo Marchetti, at midnight. Leo was an ER surgeon. He understood crisis. I told him everything, the hotel, the towels, the ghost in the bathroom. Leo was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Brother, what do you need?" "I need you to tell me I'm not crazy." "You're not crazy. You're the sanest person I know, and that's exactly why this is going to hurt worse than it should. But let me ask you something. Would you accept this from anyone else? A stranger? A colleague? Would you let a stranger lie to your face for 3 years? No. Then why would you accept it from the 2 people who were supposed to love you most?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He was right, and we both knew it. The next morning, I woke up with raw, swollen eyes and a jaw sore from clenching. But there was something else, a steadiness in my chest that hadn't been there the night before. For the first time in my marriage, I wasn't trying to make something work. I wasn't bending, accommodating, explaining away red flags I should have seen years ago. I was done being the architect of someone else's lie. It was time to build something true. 3 weeks passed, 21 days of the most precise, methodical work I've ever done, and I've engineered buildings designed to withstand hurricanes. Nadine Cross, my PI, was the first to deliver results. Within 10 days, she confirmed what I'd suspected. There was an active FBI warrant for Elliot Chambers. Turns out, when you fake your own death and collect insurance money, the federal government takes an interest. The insurance company, Meridian Atlantic, had flagged the claim 18 months after Eli's death when an anonymous tip suggested the accident was staged. They'd opened an investigation, but Eli's trail had gone cold. Until now. Brenda Osei, my accountant, dug deeper. She went through every financial record from our architecture firm, Lawson & Chambers Design Group, every account, every transfer, every invoice going back 5 years. What she found made my blood run cold. In the 6 months before his disappearance, Eli had siphoned nearly $200,000 from the business into offshore accounts, shell companies in the Caymans, wire transfers disguised as vendor payments to firms that didn't exist. He'd been stealing from us, from me, while shaking my hand every morning. And Arthur Kwan, my lawyer, laid out the legal landscape with surgical clarity. "You have leverage," he told me, sitting across from me in his office with a yellow legal pad covered in notes. "Eli faces federal fraud charges, insurance fraud, and possibly accessory charges from whoever helped him fake the death. Vanessa, depending on her involvement, could face conspiracy charges. But here's the thing, Derek. You get to decide how much of this goes public and how fast. Before I tell you what I did with that leverage, let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you held all the cards, and the hardest part wasn't deciding what to play, it was deciding not to flip the whole table? Because that's where I was. I could have burned them both to the ground publicly. I could have gone to the media, called the FBI myself, let the explosion happen, and walked away while the fire raged. But that's not who I am. I'm a builder. Even in destruction, I wanted to be deliberate. I arranged a meeting. Neutral ground. Arthur's office, downtown Clearfield. Vanessa sat on one side with a lawyer she'd hastily retained. Eli sat on the other, looking like a man who hadn't slept in weeks, because he probably hadn't. I laid out the terms. No emotion, no speeches, just facts. To Eli, I said, "You surrender to the FBI within 72 hours. You cooperate fully with their investigation and with Meridian Atlantic's fraud case. You return every dollar you stole from our firm. In exchange, I provide a statement through Arthur that may help your case for a reduced sentence. That's the best I can offer, and it's more than you deserve." Eli stared at the table. His thumb rubbed against his index finger. That old nervous habit. "And if I don't?" "Then Nadine's file goes to the FBI, the insurance company, and every media outlet in the state simultaneously. Your mother finds out you let her grieve a living son, and Victor Russo finds out exactly where you've been hiding." He went pale. To Vanessa, I said, "You sign a divorce agreement drafted by Arthur. No claim to my assets, my firm, or any property acquired during our marriage. You sign a sealed confession detailing your knowledge and involvement in Eli's scheme. In exchange, I don't pursue conspiracy charges, and your confession remains sealed unless you violate the terms." Vanessa's lawyer whispered something to her. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Derek, can we just talk? Alone? Please?" "We're done talking alone, Vanessa. Everything goes through Arthur from here." Months passed after that. Eli turned himself in 3 days later, right on schedule. Federal marshals processed him quietly. The insurance investigation accelerated. The divorce was finalized in 4 months, clean and efficient, just like I'd designed it. I threw myself into work, won a regional sustainability award for a community center I'd designed in Clearfield, hired 2 new associates for the firm, which I'd renamed Lawson Design Collaborative. Leo and his wife, Dana, started having me over for Sunday dinners. I joined a woodworking class, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for because I was too busy holding together a life built on lies. One evening, Leo's sister Camille, a high school art teacher who'd been through her own difficult divorce, sat next to me at one of those Sunday dinners. We talked for 3 hours, not about pain, about possibility. It was the first time in months I'd laughed without forcing it. Then, 6 months after the divorce, I got a call from Nadine. Eli had been sentenced, 42 months in federal prison plus restitution. The insurance company recovered most of the payout. And Vanessa, well, Nadine had heard through channels that Vanessa was living in a small apartment outside Richmond, working as an office administrator. Her social circle had evaporated. Mutual friends, once they learned the truth, had quietly distanced themselves. Not because I'd asked them to. I hadn't said a word to anyone except Leo, but because the truth has its own gravity. Knowing all of that should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the end of a very long surgery, relief that it was over, sadness for what had to be cut away. I wondered, do you ever truly win when the people you loved turn out to be strangers? A full year had passed since the bathroom door. 12 months, 365 days of rebuilding, grieving, questioning, and slowly, carefully, learning to trust my own judgment again. My life looked different now. The firm was thriving. I'd taken on a project I'd dreamed about for years, a net-zero affordable housing development on the east side of Clearfield. The kind of project Eli always said was too idealistic, not enough profit margin. Turns out, without his voice in my ear, my instincts were sharper than I'd given them credit for. The project attracted national attention. Architecture Digest ran a feature. I stood in the finished courtyard on opening day, watching families walk through their new front doors, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Not borrowed purpose. Not purpose defined by someone else's approval. Mine. Camille and I had been seeing each other for 5 months by then, slowly, carefully. She never pushed. She had her own scars, her own story, and she understood that healing isn't a straight line. Some nights I'd go quiet mid-conversation, and she'd just sit with me in the silence. No questions, no demands, just presence. Then, on a Tuesday morning in October, my phone rang. The caller ID said unknown, but I picked up anyway. "Derek, it's me." Vanessa. My chest tightened, not with love, not with anger, but with the dull ache of a wound that had healed but left a scar, the kind that twinges when the weather changes. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from," she said. Her voice was different, smaller, stripped of the confident polish I'd known for 15 years. I need 5 minutes, please." I almost hung up. Every rational part of me said to end the call, and the old Derek, the one who always accommodated, always listened, always gave one more chance, stirred somewhere deep. But the new Derek, the one who'd learned that kindness without boundaries is just self-destruction, held steady. "Say what you need to say, Vanessa." She took a shaky breath. "I'm not calling to make excuses. I know what I did. I've had a year to sit with it, and I want you to know that I understand now. I understand what I destroyed. Not just us. I destroyed your ability to trust, and I did it deliberately, every single day for 3 years. That's not a mistake. That's a choice, and I made it over and over." I waited. "I'm in therapy now," she continued. "Real therapy, not the kind where I perform for someone, actual work. And my therapist said I shouldn't call you. She said this is about my need, not yours. But I couldn't. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, not for what it gets me, just because it's true." There was a long pause. I could hear traffic in the background on her end. A car horn, someone's radio. "I appreciate you saying that," I said. And I meant it. Not because it fixed anything, but because it was the first honest thing she'd said to me in years. "Derek, do you think sometime, not now, but sometime, we could sit down, talk? I'm not asking for forgiveness or to come back. I miss who we were before I ruined it." And there it was, the final test, the one that every story like this builds toward. The moment where the person who broke you stands at your door, not with a weapon this time, but with open hands, and asks you to let them back in, even just a crack. "Vanessa," I said, and my voice was steady, not cold, not cruel, just clear. "I hope your therapy helps you. Genuinely. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, but I'm not the person who can give that to you anymore. I spent 3 years being your safety net while you lived a double life. I grieved a friend who wasn't dead and loved a wife who wasn't honest. I don't hate you for it, but I cannot sit across from you and pretend that before was real, because I don't know anymore where the truth started and the performance ended." She was crying. I could hear it. And part of me, the part that remembers her laugh on our wedding day, the part that remembers her hand on my shoulder when my father passed, that part ached. "You have your sister," I said gently. "You have your therapist. You have people in your life who can walk this road with you. I didn't take everything from you, Vanessa. I just stopped letting you take everything from me." She whispered, "I know." And then the line went quiet, and after a moment, she hung up. I sat at my drafting table for a long time after that call, the same oak table, the same morning light coming through the window, but everything else was different. I was different. So after everything you've heard, if you were standing where I am now, with a wife who deceived you for years, finally offering a genuine apology and asking for just a conversation, would you open that door again and call it forgiveness? Or would you wish her well from a distance and call it self-respect? I chose the second. Not because I'm hard, not because I don't feel, but because I've learned something that took me 38 years and the worst betrayal of my life to understand. Love doesn't mean access. Forgiveness doesn't require reunion. And the most important thing you can ever build, more important than any award-winning building, any partnership, any marriage, is a life where the foundation is honest, where every beam is true, where no one is hiding behind the bathroom door. I'm Derek Lawson. I'm an architect. And for the first time in longer than I can remember, I'm building something that's entirely mine, on a foundation that no one else can crack. And that's where Derek's story ends, not with revenge, not with bitterness, but with something far more powerful. Peace. You know, so many people think that winning means destroying the person who hurt you, but Derek didn't destroy anyone. He didn't have to. He simply stopped being the foundation that held their lives together. And when he stepped away, the whole structure collapsed on its own. Think about that for a second. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't fight back. It's walk away with your dignity, your truth, and your self-respect intact, and let the people who betrayed you sit alone with the mess they made. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever discovered a lie so deep So layered that it made you question everything you thought you knew? Have you ever had someone you trusted completely turn out to be a total stranger? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story hit you, if you felt something while listening, smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell so you never miss another story. Because next time, the betrayal goes even deeper, and the truth, it comes out in a way nobody saw coming. Until then, protect your peace, guard your boundaries, and never be afraid to walk through the door that scares you most. This has been Untold Revenge Files. I'll see you in the next one.